How I got rid of a cheating, freeloading ex who was on the lease. So, some backstory first. This all happened about 8 or 9 years ago. I was a senior level engineer at a large software company we all know and are familiar with up in the PNW of the US. I made a good salary and was doing well for myself. One day at an after-party/happy hour event at a tech conference, I met this girl who I quickly fell for. She was in her early 30s and just started out in tech. I admired her ambition and bravery to go after a new career. After spending all her 20s being a bartender or server, she decided to enroll in a coding bootcamp and was quickly hired as a junior web developer at a small company in the area. Being entry-level still, she wasn't making a ton of money, but she had potential. She was bright, driven, enthusiastic about her work, etc. and of course, I thought she was hot as hell, and I very badly wanted to see her naked. Soon, we were dating, and everything was great and hunky-dory for about 9 months or so. We were talking about marriage, and we talked about being digital nomads and living the dink life. My lease was coming up, and she lived with roommates, so was pretty much always at my place anyway, so we decided to get a new place together. With now dual incomes and her quickly rising at her job, we decided to spring for a fairly fancy apartment that was about $3,200 per month. The deal was I paid $2,000 per month plus groceries. I also did all the cooking and was picky about ingredients. Important later, she pays $1,200, and we split the utilities. It was a fair split given our relative income delta. One day, about a month after we moved into the new place, she comes home and announces she has quit her job to go to school full-time. She believed her income potential in the future would be better if she had a degree. I didn't disagree, but I was angry she just made this decision without me. When I asked how she intended to pay her part of bills, she simply replied, "Well, you make enough." She wasn't wrong. I could cover all the bills myself, but that wasn't our agreement. If I knew I would be covering everything myself, I would not have gotten this place. I eventually convinced myself it was an investment in our future. After all, we talked a lot about financial independence and retiring early, and about getting married and staying child-free, etc. Giving her the freedom to knock out a degree as fast as possible was good for both of us. Fast forward a couple more months. We're on the couch watching Netflix and she falls asleep with her phone in her hand open to Snapchat. I see a message pop up from a guy she has mentioned before, who she met at school. A guy much younger than her or I. I was feeling nosy. I slipped the phone out of her hand that was still unlocked and looked at the message. It was a dick pic. At first I just thought, ew, gross, this must be one of those guys girls always talk about sending unsolicited dick pics. But my curiosity was piqued, and I looked further. I went into her photo gallery and clicked on the Snapchat folder and it was full of this guy's dick pics and nudes of herself, that she never sent me. She would send me nudes quite often, but I didn't have Snapchat, so she was definitely sending them over Snapchat to someone else. I woke her up and confronted her about it right then, which turned into a big fight. She eventually admitted she's been fucking this guy who is like 18 years old. I told her we're done and I want her out by the weekend. Weekend comes, she hasn't moved. I'm sleeping on the couch, in a fancy apartment that I pay for alone, and I've had enough of this shit. The revenge. Since in that state is basically impossible to legally kick someone out of a lease unless they've committed a crime, I really had no recourse to get her out. So I plotted to make her life miserable. I stayed home from work one day and got to work. Our apartment was a 3-bedroom. Obviously the master was ours and shared. The second was our shared home office. The third is where I had my gaming computer and sim racing rig, and she had her painting easel. I went and bought a used, nasty twin mattress and put it room 3. I moved her stuff out of the shared office into room 3 and out my sim rig into the office. I then put locks on the master bedroom and room 2. I moved the fridge out of my room and used the office closet as a pantry. I also moved my dog's bed into the master bedroom. We each had our own dog, and they had become besties. Her dog followed mine everywhere and started sleeping in my room with me. Remember how I said I was picky about ingredients? Well, cooking is one of my favorite hobbies, and throwing all humility aside, I'm damn good at it, too. My ex, all my exes and current GF, for that matter, loved my cooking. The only things I left in the kitchen for her to eat were shit like instant noodles and rice. Every day for the next 2 weeks I was going all out, cooking delicious meals, making the apartment smell great, and not sharing a crumb of it. I even shared some of it with the dogs, but not her. And I made sure she saw me do that. I also started inviting friends over pretty much every night. Poker night, movie night, barbecue, beer tasting, LAN party, you name it. I told them what happened and they were on board to help me with my revenge. Normally I'd never be able to get them all to come over so often. I even tried Tinder to get a girl to come over. That didn't work, but one of my friend's wives who my ex hadn't met heard the plan and volunteered to come over and pretend to be my date. Finally, she was also a Twitch streamer and most of the software licenses she had were in my name, because I got them at a discount from either my employer or a vendor, which means I had record of all of them. I terminated all her software licenses. She was miserable on her gross mattress and could never get any peace and quiet to study. She couldn't stream. The plan was working. We also used to go to the gym all the time together. Now we were going at separate times. One day a guy who we see there all the time, but never really talk to, comes over to me and asks if me and 4X broke up. I told him yes. He then proceeded to tell me she spoke to him 2 days ago. AMD was trying to make me jealous by bringing him home. He declined her offer and opted to tell me about it instead. Brothers before hoes, man. Guess who was invited to poker night the next night? She left the next day, leaving an apology note and the keys on the kitchen counter. I, and my dog, Mr. Lil Pup though.